presidential nomination. My certificates looted by unknown persons, says Tinubu. The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC), Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, has told the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) that his certificates were looted by unknown persons while he was on self-exile. You can be on self-exile? Never knew that. Tinubu, in his sworn affidavit in support of his nomination form, said went on self-exile from October 1994 to October 1999, and when I returned and discovered that my property, including all my documents relating to my qualification and my certificates in respect of paragraph 3 above, were looted by unknown persons. The candidate skipped information regarding his primary and secondary education, but said he attended the University of Chicago between 1972 and 1976, where he obtained a bachelor's in economics. He also said he had a bachelor's in business and administration, as well as a certificate in public account. The presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, presented the master's degree he obtained in 2021 as his highest educational qualification. Abuja civil servant reveals. Okay, this is now a different article. Okay. This, if 2 plus 2 is 4 and 5 plus 5 is 10, what is this? Because this is literally not making sense at all. How can you... It's actually so funny. Like, it's just the... What's the word? It's the logic of it all. It's the chain. It's the... I don't even know. The consecutiveness. Like, how can you attain a bachelor's degree and not have secondary school certificate and not have a primary school certificate? Because how does that make sense? Because when you're going to apply for universities, especially abroad, your secondary school certificate is so important. And for you to do a degree in economics, so if it is a thing where you cannot retrieve your documents, it happens to people. So you have to go back to university, which I am sure they have records of, and you ask them, so with the records that I used to apply, is it possible you have any records or any papers, or even if it's a photocopied certificate? What did I use to apply? Because now Atiku Abubakar is out here coming to show his master's certificate. Like, okay, what does that do? Because it just defeats the whole point. It's very confusing, to be honest. So I'm very much confused as to how on self-exile, it's just not making sense. Sorry. If you really wanted to go, and it's again, if you really wanted to go find your certificates, then go back to the schools that you applied to for university and ask them. Except you want us to actually go to the schools that you applied to abroad and ask them, can you pull up documents? Because then it would make the school look very what's the word? You can doubt the school's credibility, because it's a thing where, okay, fine, how did you accept him into your university? What qualifications were good enough for you to accept him to study in your university? So yeah, this is just not making sense. It's just a whole lot of story. And right now it's not even relevant. Yeah. Somebody says, were the primary and secondary schools you attended looted too? Again, this is Nigeria. Again, why can't you go back to the schools you went to? It's not very clear the main reason why we are going backwards, and tribalism sentiments will not allow us to put things right. He should be disqualified by INEC immediately. I mean, I don't know specifically what the requirements are, but he's not disqualified. He's the official presidential candidate. It's literally we're too far for him to be disqualified. He must have to have done something pretty bad for him to be disqualified. Doesn't make sense at all. Does not make sense. It's just a thing where we can't, Because again, if you compare Peter B, of course you can see his whole resume. Like he's educated, and you can see it in the way he speaks, in the way that he forms his arguments. You know what I mean? It's not just having a degree. How do you speak? How do these information or the knowledge that you have, how do they form you as an individual? Like how does it form your own belief system? How does it form your own arguments and the way you speak? It all shows, right? So it's a thing where from the way he speaks, it's a thing where you're gonna doubt if he's educated, which is not a problem. But if again, another factor that comes into play is his age. So we're a bit more patient in that regard. But then for the fact that we're looking at his age and how that is should be a problem is already a red flag in itself. However, in spite of all this, look at where he is. You cannot underestimate anybody because you feel like they're not good enough or they're not up to par. And we know well in Nigeria that in spite of merit, you can still get where you want to get to. And this is a prime example of that in just a bigger scale. In a micro scale, with the way people relate with each other, that is the same thing as well. So it's a thing where, okay, fine, primary school certificate, all these are irrelevant arguments. Guys, he is the official presidential candidate for the APC. There is no going back. He's the presidential candidate. There's nothing we can do. So having conversations about his certificate is very irrelevant, very useless, because we've been having these conversations for so long. Your qualifications, primary school certificate, secondary certificate, like these are conversations we have with every presidential aspirant who does not even seem to be good enough. And it's not like for us to have conversations about that just shows how low, how bare it is. Like is the barest minimum. It's like even you getting employed into as you say low skill jobs will also ask for your secondary school certificate, let alone for someone who wants to be president of a country. Come on now, the bar is just too low, and it's very embarrassing. It is so embarrassing that this is what Nigerians will have to settle for. But we are the ones who we're the ones who are able to facilitate change. So if we do not want Tinubu to be a reflection of us as a people, then the job we have is to make sure that we vote for who we think will represent us well. And Tinubu and his school certificate is like Nigerians who want to be hilarious movie this time around. It was stolen. Okay, this doesn't make sense. Live from the pit of hell. He didn't go to school. There's no point having these conversations, really. I think the conversation we should be having right now is how not to underestimate his tactic, his power, his experience in terms of getting to where he wants to get to, his influence, because that's basically his key playing game. Like that's his key tactic. That's what would push him. And we need to focus on how we don't underestimate that. However, we still support who we want to support and who we want to put in power. Probably think and don't forget to like and subscribe.